A man sits alone in a small, bare room. He feels a strange sense of fear. Another man walks past the door. He is young, just like the first man, but he holds a wooden baton. He wears sunglasses that hide his eyes. The first man is a prisoner. The second is a guard. Neither is real. They are playing parts in a study. The study was called the Stanford Prison Experiment. It began with a simple question. What happens when you put good people in an evil place? The experiment wanted to see how power, or the lack of it, could change a person. But the study itself became something dark. It became a story known around the world. Yet, some truths about it remain hidden in the shadows. This experiment was designed to be a simulation. The goal was to understand the psychology of prison life. The researchers, led by Philip Zimbardo, wanted to know if brutality came from personalities, or if it was the situation itself. They recruited young, healthy male college students. No history of violence or psychological problems. They were ordinary people. They were randomly assigned to their roles. Half became prisoners. The other half became guards. The experiment was meant to last 2 weeks, but the story would unfold much faster than expected. The core idea was to strip away individuality. Prisoners were given numbers instead of names. They wore ill-fitting smocks and a chain on one ankle. It made them feel powerless and anonymous. The guards were given uniforms, sunglasses, and batons, symbols of authority. The experiment took place in the basement of Stanford University's psychology building. Researchers transformed a drab hallway into a makeshift prison. They constructed 3 small cells, replacing laboratory doors with steel bars. Each cell was tiny, barely room for 3 cots. At one end, a small, unlit closet designated for solitary confinement. The hole. No windows, no clocks. Participants were meant to lose their connection to the outside world. The simulation began with a startling touch of realism. Prisoners were arrested at home by local police, charged with a felony, read their rights, handcuffed, and taken to the station. They were fingerprinted and placed in a holding cell. A powerful psychological tactic. It blurred the line between experiment and reality from the start. Blindfolded, they were brought to the Stanford prison. They were stripped, searched, deloused. A humiliating initiation meant to erase identity and induce powerlessness. Guards got a briefing. Maintain order, no physical violence. But they were encouraged to create an atmosphere of powerlessness with their own rules. Participants were paid $15 a day, a decent sum in 1971. That financial contract may have made it harder to walk away as things deteriorated. On the first day, both guards and prisoners seemed unsure of their roles. Commands were given. Compliance followed. But it felt like a performance. That feeling didn't last long. By morning of the second day, the prisoners staged a rebellion. They tore off caps, ripped off their numbers, shouted insults. It directly challenged guard authority. Angered, they decided to break solidarity by force. They sprayed extinguishers into cells, broke in, stripped prisoners naked, took away beds, and put leaders in solitary confinement. Prisoners became numbers. Us versus them solidified in 24 hours. After crushing the rebellion, guards turned to psychological punishments. Arbitrary rules, midnight counts, endless recitation of numbers. Push-ups became punishment, sometimes with a guard's weight pressing down. Bathroom access turned into a reward to be earned. This wasn't about order, it was about domination and humiliation. Emotional breakdowns followed. One was released after only 36 hours. One of the most debated aspects is Philip Zimbardo's role. He wasn't just observing, he cast himself as prison superintendent. Guards looked to him for guidance and approval. His presence gave guard actions a stamp of authority. This dual role undermined scientific objectivity. He later admitted he lost objectivity. Recorded instances show guards were encouraged to be tougher. When unsure, guard Dave Eshelman was told it was his job, and he escalated. The line between observing and directing became dangerously blurred. Modern ethics wouldn't allow a PI to run the prison inside their own study. He wanted a strong result, and helped ensure it. The darkness didn't just emerge, it was cultivated. If you want more hidden history deep dives, Tap subscribe, like, and share. The popular belief is that guards spontaneously invented cruelty. Ordinary boys given power became monsters, or so the story goes. But new evidence suggests the guards had help. Some methods weren't original. Guards later admitted to copying movie characters, like Cool Hand Luke's warden. They followed a cultural script of the brutal guard. They weren't just themselves, they were performing a role. Briefings explicitly urged boredom, fear, and loss of individuality. Researchers provided objectives, guards filled in details, often via pop culture. Eshelman saw it as improvisational theater, pushing prisoners for dramatic effect. But his performance had real, painful consequences for those without power. Guard behavior was shaped by instructions, cultural scripts, and personality. Not all chose the same path. The popular narrative paints guards with a single brush, but that's a simplification. In truth, their behavior varied significantly. About a third became actively cruel and tyrannical. Another third were tough but fair, enforcing rules without sadism. The final third were uneasy, offering small favors, but never intervening. Their inaction allowed abuse to continue. Situations interact with personalities. Some embrace authority, others shrink from it. Prisoners weren't all passive. From the start, some pushed back. The rebellion was a collective act of dignity and control. Even after it failed, subtle resistance continued. Prisoner 416 went on a hunger strike, refusing to eat. Guards tried to force-feed him and put him in solitary for hours. They threatened to take blankets. Prisoners chanted that he was a bad prisoner. His integrity met an immense pressure to conform. Divide the oppressed and solidarity breaks, even in a simulation. These acts remind us, there is always a choice, to comply or to resist. In the decades since, the experiment has faced growing criticism. Researchers question its methods and conclusions, demand characteristics. Participants act how they think researchers want. Pre-briefings hinted at desired outcomes. There was no true control group to isolate causes. No variant with different guard instructions or absent superintendent. Was it uniforms? Power imbalance? Instructions? We can't say for sure. It's a compelling demonstration, not a controlled study. It has struggled to replicate. In 2001, Haslam and Riker's BBC prison study found different results. Prisoners formed solidarity and challenged guards. Guards hesitated to use power. Stanford's outcome isn't a universal truth about human nature. Context, culture, and individual differences matter immensely. The famous conclusion, situations automatically determine behavior, is an oversimplification. Leadership, group identity, and personal choice intertwine. Today, it's taught as a case study in research ethics. It warns of experimenter bias, protecting participants, and scientific rigor. The dark truth lies in the basement, and in how the myth was told for years. Despite its flaws, the Stanford Prison Experiment remains a powerful story, not a tidy fact, but a cautionary tale. It warns of the corrupting nature of unchecked power and our own vulnerability. Could I become a cruel guard or a broken prisoner? The line between good and evil is permeable. Situations push us. From Abu Ghraib to everyday harassment, the pattern repeats. Systems can be designed to dehumanize. Uniforms, numbers, arbitrary rules. We must ask if our institutions promote dignity or make cruelty easy. Be vigilant architects of our social worlds. Build with empathy and guardrails. Passive complicity is a choice. Silence is consent. When we witness injustice, we can look away or speak up. Looking away lets darkness grow. Step into the light. Be the person who questions authority, stands up for the vulnerable, refuses to be a bystander. Think about the systems you're in and how to make them better. This story is a mirror. If this made you think, like, share, subscribe, and continue the conversation in the comments.